Once upon a time there was a stick of cherry red chalk. It was the kind of shade that you would squeal about finding in a pack, so rich and vibrant that you could eat it. Well, if you're into those kinds of things, I guess. Enough to say it was the double yolk equivalent in the chalk world, a little treasure tucked away quietly in its box, a kid's oyster wrapped in a cardboard shell. Now, I'll let you into a secret. Sticks of chalk only come alive when they are being used. Back in the box, or basically whenever they're not in someone's fingers, they're as fast asleep as a baby breastfed with milk laced with brandy. It is a wonderful state. But of course it means that each moment they're awoken feels a rather rude wake-up call, like a bucket of ice water thrown in your face, followed by a jab in the eye with a red-hot poker, or electric paddles in an emergency ward, or all three. To prove my point, the first time the stick of cherry red chalk was woken, it was being whizzed across a blackboard with lightning speed and a mid-air frenzy, underlining and highlighting and squiggling crazy-shaped stars that gave it a blinding, shocking headache, given the passion that the lecturer clearly had for his subject. It was a roller coaster birth, and it had to get its head in gear pretty quickly. As it did, it worked out that it was being used in a lecture on culture, pulling themes of philosophy and science and all sorts of artistic endeavours together in a great big blackboard clock face, which started with the ancient world at about 1 o'clock and ticked right on round to the 21st century, chiming in at midnight. The stick of cherry red chalk quickly worked out that it was definitely getting all the good bits. It was liberally scrawled all over the Renaissance. It had a total hoot dancing around Da Vinci, and digital age even got written in red alone, so that it shone out like a beacon. So bright it was that it blasted right out across the lecture hall and into the brain of a student who had never even thought about these things, certainly not in quite that way. Her neural pathways were suddenly ignited and sparked by that trail of red chalk dust in a manner that would make her, potentially, even greater than Da Vinci, as it was to turn out. Yes, the inspired, creative story of her life would start straight after that lecture, in the time it took for a large cappuccino and a call to her uncle about funding a trip to Rome. But when the bell rang at the end of the lecture, the stick of cherry red chalk was put back in its box. The next time it was rudely woken, it seemed to be at a bus stop somewhere, and it could smell burning. It was being twiddled and scribbled in a random doodle, while a girl with a lot of metal in her face also twiddled and sucked on a white smoking stick in her other hand. She seemed to like both her sticks just about equally, and as she jangled on her way home, she used nearly all that was left of the stick of cherry red chalk to graffiti quirky little messages on walls and ledges, and even on pavements, like, "Find what you love and let it kill you," or "Let yourself shine." And because it didn't rain for a few days, this trail the stick of cherry red chalk left raised endless smiles and hopes, and even a sense of the beyond in a few of those who read the seemingly out-of-context words and then couldn't forget them on the morning bus to the job that they hated. Yes, that part of the stick of cherry red chalk lived vibrantly, until the next downpour, anyway. The very last time the stick of cherry red chalk was shaken awake was by some fat, stubby, sticky baby fingers that didn't grab at it with any of the skill of its other two owners at all. In fact, at one point, it was fumbled off the coffee table and pawed and toyed with by something that surely couldn't have been human, with nails like vicious little knives and a tongue made of wet, fishy sandpaper. It heard distant shouting, and the pawing monster suddenly scarpered with a tail swish that happened to roll it back into the chubby, grubby fingers again, which didn't want to let the stick of cherry red chalk go back to sleep. Not just yet. It was swooped up, copying the kitty, and the stick of cherry red chalk was licked and sucked to within an inch of its life. It was now so small, it looked a bit like a cherry red sweetie. And what was left of the stick of cherry red chalk finally came to rest in the throat of the child with an innocent sweet tooth, nestling down snugly in her windpipe and neatly shutting out the draughty air supply so that both of them could sleep soundly, deep and dreamily. And who would want to wake up from that kind of wondrous sleep? During those eternal slumbers, neither the child nor the stick of cherry red chalk knew anything of the frenzy of mass TV coverage, or the children's charity campaigns and phone-in shows on parental neglect that followed. Nor did they know of the new safer homes the poor child's numerous brothers and sisters were swiftly shifted off to by well-meaning social workers, in the hope that they could create their lives to the full, enjoy all their days, and have their chance to blaze a trail. But who knows? There are no guarantees. Good or bad, the stick of cherry red chalk had lived its life and played its part in many others' lives. And whilst it may be the bitterest pill to swallow, despite our best efforts, sometimes it's all that we can do too.